Hello everyone, welcome to this interactive elemental reading for this week of May 20th, 2018. I'm out here, my good buddy Frankie over there is probably going to pipe in too. I feel like, we're being called into new energy this week because we'll be entering into Gemini, which is endlessly curious. This is the timing is always great as we go through each of the signs. And Gemini is an air sign, so we can be switching from thing to thing to thing to thing to thing. And that's why I wanted to be out here in front of we have this little flowering crab tree that's finally coming into it. It's been growing and growing since we moved here and built our home. And I wanted to be out here among all of the activity. I wanted Frankie to be a part of this. I originally sat down to do the reading and there's all these bumblebees all over it. And I have a fear of bumblebees. And so I'm like, okay, nope, I can't do that. But they can still be in the background and I'm going to be okay with this. And we have dandelions growing everywhere and the wind chimes are going off. And there's people doing yard work on the other side here. And this is so perfect. This is a part of the message. Okay, Gemini is going to have us going in many directions, seeking many different things. The energy is always very intense as we first enter into a sign and as we're leaving it. So I also want you to think about on Sunday the 20th, that is our last day of Taurus. And it's been a big one because, as I mentioned last week, Uranus moved into Taurus for a 7-year transit there. And Mercury was moving through there. There was just a lot going on. So I want you to do a little thinking, too, about what has been going on for you since around the 20th in April, that you've come to understand a new part about you, about your richness, about what you value in life. And maybe some of that has even come up through immediate change and surprises that have happened even in the past week with this Uranus transit. Again, always very significant when a planet moves into a sign or when we're switching into a new sign. There is just like being catapulted out, out you come from the rocket ship takes off, So just spend a little time thinking about how much you've gained during Taurus season. There's always gifts that come out of Taurus, and often it has to do with what we view as beautiful in our life, what we really value in life, and maybe adjusting our own value system slightly, okay? So the basis for the reading, because I don't have cards this week, we're using 3 of the elements. There are 4 elements that I'm focused on here. As part of the basis of the reading, we're using the water element. And then for the 3 options that you had to choose from, I'll have a crystal and we'll just see what comes through for the message. So here's the intro, the basis for this week's reading. As we're going into this very curious Gemini energy, things can start to feel really sporadic and like you're kind of all scattered and maybe there's a lot grabbing your attention and you have a really heightened sense of curiosity, creativity, also being really, really chatty, and also being able to somehow, it's like your processing ability speeds up dramatically. And all of that coming out of Taurus, this is always by design. It's very unlike Taurus. Taurus is very kind of slowed down and wants stability. And could I have just a clear answer here? And really wants to be like bask in all that is beautiful. Now we're switching into what I was just talking about. So much going on in the environment, and I got bumblebees behind me that I'm petrified of. And all of this going on. There's always, just lots of jagged energy sort of pulling us, and we feel called towards certain things or we're pushed towards certain things because of our circumstances. So part of this is finding your steady. because the number for our week, the numerological energy for the week is 6, which is about reestablishing balance. This is continuing on kind of in the Taurus energy, but trying to find your sense of balance even when you have a piqued sense of curiosity, maybe a reinvigoration on projects and kind of not knowing what to do first. I want you to make the most of Gemini energy. So it's about, finding that inspiration and enjoying the faster processing time, but not getting scattered. And mostly I'm getting imagery of not getting splintered, not being, kind of shattered into a million different pieces, and then you don't know where to focus. And in the end, then, none of those pieces end up being effective. You end up being, your energy is totally divided in too many directions. And that's a byproduct of Gemini season. But you don't have to make it that way. You can choose to slow some of that processing down, some of the curiosity, some of the creativity, and really delve deeper into what really is drawing your interest. But, with all of this stimuli going on, even in this reading, you need to find time for yourself to remain diligent and stay on course. And a lot of times that means getting grounded and having time for silence for yourself during this period, really the 21st through June 20th. This is the time. So I want both for you, okay? So it's about reestablishing balance. It's the 6 energy. And Libra 24 is our symbol. And that aligns. 2 plus 4 is 6. I dowsed to find the 6. And now I'm just noticing, oh, okay, the Sabian lines up with this too. And Libra 24 says, a butterfly with a 3rd wing on its left side. The left side is ruled by the right brain, which is Gemini land. Endless curiosity. Gemini can never get enough. It's voracious learning and discovery, and Geminis typically are great chatters. They can speak to anybody about anything, and they're just so curious. That's what is so great about Gemini energy. And the brain is working overtime, so it's hard for Gemini to slow it down and actually sleep and take care of yourself, okay? So this is saying, during this season that we're launching into, and with the energy being intense this week, this is about, there's a rebirth process happening with the butterfly indication, and this is about using your creativity in a way that brings you more life, not shattering yourself into pieces, which gives you less life. I want the best of Gemini energy for you, and I want you to use the creativity and the interest and everything that is intuitively coming to you, because that's also indicated with the right brain. But to use it in a way that you can rebirth, you can learn something new. I want us to make the most of each zodiac season, as I call it, and not get torn off into the extreme end of the energy. And that's particularly true for this week. The reason I feel called to use the elements is because of the fact that by design, each of them in their own way is very grounding. It's very balancing. So you also may have been led to more than one of the elements. Somebody asked me that question in the posting I made on Facebook, and that's fine too. Maybe you want to listen to all 3 and see which one pulls you, because you might need all of the messages in some form, which is fine. Okay, so then I mentioned water is the element that is the undercurrent, along with this Libra 24, of a butterfly with a 3rd wing on its left side. Okay, water is the element, so we're talking about emotional stability this week. Water is indicative of the emotional part of your being here, as being on an elemental planet. And so this crystal, this beautiful Andorra crystal that is known to me as tide, like as in ocean tide, came forward. And this speaks to, throughout the week, you will feel, sort of the spikes of like creativity and interest and curiosity, and maybe lots and lots of conversation, and there's lots going on. And some of it could just leave you feeling emotionally depleted. But understand, to make the most out of this, you want to use all of the energy that's being whizzed up in order to create a new sense of rebirth for yourself. This comes during springtime season here in the Northern Hemisphere. And so this is about really finding this new level of you, and especially from an emotional perspective. And this week, trying to find an ease with flowing with the emotions that get sparked up through your own sense of creativity and interest and conversations. That I want you to think about it, and this came up in a client's reading recently. I want you to think about whether it's really best to think of yourself like on an ocean, in an ocean, and you're laying on your back and you're just allowing it to float you. And sometimes you can feel yourself going up on the crest of the wave. Sometimes some water comes over your face. But the point is, remember, this is about reestablishing balance this week. Balance, because there's a lot of zing energy coming in. And so yes, the water might come over your face. You might not be able to breathe sometimes. You might be sputtering. It might feel like a deluge at times. And again, especially emotionally here. But the tide crystal is about you being open to allowing those emotions to come in and just being reflective on, okay, so what could this be about? And is there a gift hidden in here? And I'm being triggered for some reason, and I'm kind of wondering what that is. Because it helps to think about our world as being reflective back to us. There's something in our energy field that is being sort of blasted out there like a radio tower, and then, like vibration is coming back to reveal something in us that we're ready to see. So it just helps to think about this reflection, but you really need the ease to be noticing and not be too scattered. It's more about ease and flow and understanding there's going to be some peaks and there's going to be some deep valleys. That's the way Gemini in particular season tends to start off. And the fact that Uranus, which is the planet of change, just made that transit into Taurus. So that energy is still really new and really intense, therefore. So just being able to kind of float with it, and also notice if you pick up on a pattern that tends to show up, whether it's around the time of the year and the way that you seem to react in certain situations, or if it's in the work setting and as people are having different conversations or certain projects are coming up, that certain things happen. You have a response of some kind. I get a feeling of, just like the tides, this kind of cyclical pattern that is playing out. And with Gemini, you will have a more highly functioning brain and sensing system, because again, remember, this is emotion. And that is our great sensing system that we have. So you can notice when you're in the dips and when you're on the highs, and what is it that allows you to remember, reestablish balance? What is it that allows you to get back to a little bit of a steadier footing for yourself? And what strategies can you use? Because there'll be this influx of the energy, and that can feel really good. It's like getting on a high, But then we know change is the only constant on this planet. And so you know that there's going to be a dip then at some point. And how can you just ride with that and see the beauty in that as well? So I feel like each of these messages is pointing us to that kind of ride with it. And knowing that as you do so, you're going to be building the strategies that you need during times of intense change or stress or emotional upset of some kind. And that, when I say upset, I'm meaning a change, a dramatic change in the emotional energy of any setting or in relation to any person. Both in a really positive way, as well as some things that can be pretty challenging. And then, of course, everything in between. But you're getting your footing here this week. You've got an opportunity to find that. And that's the rebirth, the butterfly thing that, that's what it's about, is you finding strategies to help you find that balance, to always be able to reestablish balance. As a messenger, I'm finding that really is the core of all of my messages, is that we are capable of finding our balance no matter what. That is like a call to grace within each of us, no matter what's happening. So the elements being our partners this week, I'm going to move on. And let's start with the air element. So this was the picture of the beautiful goddess in blue with all the air swirling around her. And I named the artist who created that. It really took my eye immediately. Air is related to Gemini as an air sign. This is about your mentality. And remember, even though water is the basis, the emotional self is the basis of what this message is about, we're always combining elements. We're always working with all of them. So for you this week, really tapping into that mental construct and how you process and how you communicate and how you listen. I always say that about air because I think that piece of it gets left out. And I think that we need to remember that there is great power and a lot of treasures to be had when we stop and truly listen, instead of when we're in conversation. And I'm particularly thinking about conversations that you're having this coming week where there is an emotional charge of some sort, or you're really excited or somebody else is really excited, perhaps about a new idea or some intuition that has come over you or someone else. It's something that, because clearly there's an influx of that right brain energy, your creativity really being piqued this week. And a desire, what I'm seeing here is a desire to be out of the box, a desire to like blow that popsicle stand. You are just not interested in status quo anymore, which is a huge trait of Gemini. No moss grows on Gemini. It's not, they're just not happy with sticking around and saying the same old things. It's almost like in meetings you might be part of, or in relationships that feel challenging to you, or even relationships that feel, what I'm getting a sense of is kind of stagnant. They're like, it's like being on a merry-go-round, but there's no music and the horses aren't moving up and down. It's just the same old rote pattern. And this is the week to really break that, and this brings a new sense of life to you. But the crystal that's being called for with air is another piece of Andorra crystal, and like Tide, this is the same type of crystal, but this is an Arcturian crystal, and this is known to me as clarity and power. That is the name of it. And it's like Archangel Michael energy. I see Michael with this very brilliant royal blue kind of a color. And this is about having your inner power and clarity. But I really want to say again, consider that in the mental sphere and how we process, how stuff works up here, which is connected to here. Also, it's connected to here. That we need to understand that there is a two-way channel here. And also to understand as well, there is a third channel, and that is the one that comes from within. And that's what's going to really be lit up for a lot of people this week, is that intuitive hits kind of a feeling, because the butterfly with the third wing on its left side, that is saying, like, you know, you're heavily kind of weighted in that direction of more creativity, more intuition, really renegade new options. And this is particularly in how you communicate and how you choose to process what is occurring in your world. But it's a fun exercise to really take your time with listening to people. And like part of your processing is also in what you see. It's when you really look deeper at not just what's coming out of somebody's mouth, but watching their body language, watching when they turn away from you, watching when they put their arms crossed in front of them, as if to create a boundary. This is all information. And without getting hypersensitive and over the top, I'm not meaning to do that, because we can get overwhelmed at that. Talk about getting scattered. But to be, it's a presence in your situations this week. And to understand that all of this offers you greater clarity and power in terms of knowing who you are and what you represent, and understanding and respecting that of others too. Because the pure gold of coming to this planet is the fact that we have to, by design, interact with others. That's just the way it is here, and it's what I call the rub. And those people who you just can't, like, you can't understand why they do what they do. Or a partner who has certain traits that you're like, it might start to feel like, oh, here we go again, like the same old, same old. There's something galling. Like, I literally feel like there's some special sauce that is rising to the top here. There's some special ingredient that you know, it's like you're sitting and you're eating soup again for like the 10th day in a row. You're sitting and eating it and you're like, oh, I just tasted something new. There's something deeper going on that is ready to come up for you that makes everything new again. It's like it breaks this pattern, this rote pattern. And in the end, by really focusing on that air element of your mentality and listening and watching and just observing, being present in a conversation, and particularly conversations that feel like they just go round and round and maybe they don't get anywhere, or maybe they're really stale. You're with that group of people or that person for a reason. We find our way to these people that are here to reflect something back to us, like I said in the intro, reflecting back to us what we're ready to see within ourselves and to come to a new level of understanding. And that's why I'm saying with this crystal, this is about clarity and power. This is about you actually getting clearer on who you are and why you're here and why you're in a situation or with a person or feeling the way you are. Because remember, water is the undercurrent here. You're getting a whole chance at rebirth around something with that. And it's something that maybe has gone quite stale, or you feel like, I gotta break out of this box because I can't stand it anymore. There is refreshment to be had without leaving said group or said person or even self-judgments about yourself. There's something deeper, but you can benefit by really being present, okay? And that helps you to get more clear. This is part of the rebirth process that Gemini energy is going to offer you in the next month. Next up, I'm going to do the earth. This was a picture of a woman's face, and it had it was like as if she was part of a tree, it looked like to me. And like there was some moss growing sort of by her nose area. And I purposely picked all pictures that actually have some type of a human figure in them. So with Earth, we're coming out of Earth, Taurus, this sense of everyday life, of the things that we need, like money, like material objects, like balancing your checkbook. No greater way to get your earth energy motivated than to do things like balancing the checkbook, paying the bills, cleaning closets. Holy crumb. That is so good at grounding earth energy. It's very productive. It's very cleansing, which is what earth energy is all about. It's meant to return you to the elements. It's meant to ground you and get back to the basics. And a sense of simplicity I feel for you. And this is really important as we go into Gemini energy. Like I said, it's very easy for energy to get splintered. I want you to picture like a hand mirror that I'm dropping on the ground right now, and it goes ding, it just goes into a million different little shards. And they're all connected in the middle, but there's shards everywhere. So you got this. You don't have to panic here, okay? But I really want to stress that because the earth energy is really calling you to understand you might just need to slow the pace down a little bit and to work in some very grounding techniques this week, as I mentioned, and particularly things having to do with your home and getting areas cleaned up, and that literally cleanses the energy in your setting. Think about how much time most of us spend at home. You also can do this in your office environment. Mine has changed dramatically since I went through sort of a slow cleansing process of what even I was looking at in my workspace. And I just feel this need for simplicity because I'm seeing sort of like threads that they're all coming like a big bunch, and then they start spreading because there's all of this interest and a mental energy, the air element coming in with Gemini, that's like a big whoosh of air being pushed out, like I bring a hairdryer down, and all of a sudden those threads are going everywhere, okay? So there's a real sense, and that might feel a little unsettled to you. But I don't want you to feel unsettled. I want you to be productive in this time of Gemini, and it being very excitable energy. And it almost feels to me like the people around you are all like, yee! They're just like zinging around like they've just had a huge dose of sugar or something, running around like little kids, like yelling and being just excitement. Not a bad thing, it's excitement, but you're a little bit like, okay, there's an uneasiness that I feel. So your crystal that came up is this little piece of amber that I have. I have two pieces of amber. This is the smaller and the smoother of the two. And this is known to me as redwood. When I get crystals, I immediately sit with them and I just listen to them. And this wanted to be on my earth team. Amber is actually a resin. And this redwood, like the giant redwoods out in California, that's what came to me immediately. And there's a sense, I wrote down some words here that really came to me for you. Elder, deeply rooted, stability, and simplicity. And I want you to think about a favorite elder from your life who has always been steady, or maybe they've passed on, but when you think of them, you think of them like one of those stately trees that has been here for so many years and seen so many cycles of things. And I just want you to revisit and really embrace that energy for yourself this week, because I think you're going to have plenty of stimulation in terms of creativity and new ideas, new ways of being, maybe new big changes in your life, perhaps. But those ideas are not going to gain traction, even if they really excite you. They won't gain traction unless you employ your earth energy. I'm really feeling a mixing of these two. The air, that you just endless curiosity and creativity and like interest. There's such an interest with Gemini energy. And the sped up pace that it naturally brings. The best way is the mixing in earth, because I feel like you could very easily get carried away, literally, on the thought forms, on the ideas, on what people are suggesting. And so really think about an elder, and if you didn't have this sort of person in your life, then make up what that elder would look like. And I do almost get a feeling of this is like actually an energy, it does feel Native American to me, of like a senior ancestral guide, from the spiritual side of things, who is there for you and really like standing right behind you with his or her hand or both hands on your back and just saying it's okay. There's this sense of like a comforting presence of these cycles happen and ideas come up, and you don't have to tackle them all at once. You don't have to solve everything right now. You can listen and you can be excited and you can get your ideas written down and you can have some conversations, but you don't have to hop into it. And this redwood energy is just, it's so rooted. So I feel like whatever creative ideas that come that excite you, because remember we're dealing with water as the basis of the elements for the reading. It excites you, it emotionally charges you up, but that also can make you feel uncomfortable. So stability, no, it's okay. I don't have to take the fire hose to the mouth, or some people say you only eat an elephant one bite at a time. And just breathing and continue to maintain, or if you don't already, getting a schedule in place at home and or at work, where maybe that is sort of where there's a rejuvenation, where there's a creative outlet, is to either establish or kind of change up those routines a little bit at home and or work, where maybe you go into work and maybe you don't open your emails first thing. Maybe you spend the first hour of the day diving into a project, because that is when your energy is at its highest throughout the day. That's a good thing. So using the energy to your advantage, but just knowing you're making choices based on this sense of stability and just a very deep, mature knowing within you that it's okay. I don't need to get worried. I don't need to get upset. I don't even know how things are going to turn out. But I'm going to follow this little idea that I have, and I'm going to make these few little changes. Or I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to get started on cleaning out my closet, or finally dealing with those financial questions that I have, or preparing an outdoor space for us to use in the summer. These sorts of things, it's like you're really within creating an emotional environment for yourself that feels more comforting, and knowing you are capable of that at any moment. This is part of a strategy to help you during times of upset. Bring your earth. The final element is fire. All right, I'm just getting my crystal out. So fire is our passion. I do equate it to the higher self energy. I also do equate it with that inner child, that boisterous sort of feeling. It's sunshiny, but fire can very quickly get out of control if there's too much of it. So, and fire and air are partners in the elemental scheme. They work well together. So I feel like you're really flying going into Gemini. And this is going to be like a flying time for you. And in the image that I chose, and I chose very carefully for fire in particular, there is a fox that is shown. And that is this sense of deep, deep intelligence, wisdom, really guiding you in terms of when the idea comes up. Gemini brings the idea up. There is an essence of having the passion and particularly the drive to actually make it happen, to do it, that it's not going to do itself. And this is what I call inspired action. This is where, you don't have to necessarily work your fingers to the bone, but you might. It's sort of like when you have a passion and you could spend all day doing it, and you look up and before you know it, like half the day is gone and you feel like you could just keep doing it all day long. This is the kind of thing that can really, I feel like this actually brings more balance for you, that perhaps before now, before coming into Gemini, there's been a sense of, oh, well, I have this idea and I have this idea, but you haven't been gaining any traction on it. And I feel like with Gemini coming in, there is an automatic like fire starter going on underneath. It's like starting the campfire. You've gathered up all of the sticks and the hay and all the pieces to make a beautiful fire so that it will take, but you haven't actually put the flame to it. And by flame, what I mean is effort, because you have this piece of zeolite. I'm hoping I'm saying that right. Zeolite, I think. This is known to me as peak because it's got this, like, it looks like a mountain, doesn't it? And I was so struck when I first held it at how many little, facets there are to this. And it really felt like, okay, there's something really big and beautiful waiting for you. And it's just maintaining the vision of that. And this is like having a peak experience. This is like having a goal out there and you're doing something every single day, every day, to work towards that goal. And it's about putting the effort in. And those who chose this, I'm curious, you may not have a lot of fire in your natural birth chart. You may be lacking in that element, and thus the reason why there isn't some firepower that has started up. Here we go with the rain. So this is really like emotionally, maybe there is too an element of this where you feel afraid to take that first step or afraid of failing because emotion is running under this. But believe me, this is going to be a level of rebirth that will be well worth it. The butterfly has the third wing on that left side. It's going to launch you creatively in a way that nothing else could have. But I do get a sense of diligence is required here. You must put one foot in front of another just a little bit every single day. Because as you're doing that, The universe is picking up on that creative passion, that fire element, and saying, okay, let's bring in some resources to help him out. Let's bring in a resource, let's bring in a person who knows more about that type of a project, and that gives you more horsepower. And before you know it, they're like, hey, well, I'll look at that first draft of that, or whatever it may be. And you start getting guided right along. But it's going to take, and this is diligence. With the rain coming down here, I really do feel that. The peak experience, when you're climbing a mountaintop, when you're on a hike, you have to remain diligent in putting one foot in front of the other, because what awaits you at the top, the effort is all worth it. You are sweaty as anything. You got bug bites all over you. You fell down and you got a scrape on your knee. Your feet hurt. But then you get to the top and you're like, oh my God. The view from here, I never could have seen this any other way except to come here. And so it's the diligence. It's the diligence. It's remain. It's like starting a workout routine, for instance. And you wake up one morning and it's downpouring, but you have agreed to do couch to 5K, and today is the day when you have to do this part of the routine, and you won't melt. I won't melt standing out here talking to you. My camera will be okay. There is a diligence to it, and this is part of how Gemini energy helps you, is that if you get focused on that inspiration that comes to you, you will naturally be lifted and led and powered. There's so much momentum involved with Gemini that you just need to show some interest. You just need to let the universe know that I'm interested in this. And then things start to gain even more momentum. And that's what carries you through the times when the downpour comes. Because you don't want to get off schedule. You don't want tomorrow to be harder than it was today. You want it to be easier. You want to be able to check off that box. You want to be able to cross that off and say, I did it. And I've done it for 3 weeks. That's the peak experience. And what I love about this particular crystal is when you look at it this way, you're like, oh yeah, that's neat, and if you saw it really up close here with me, you'd be intrigued by it. But then it's like, once you get to the top, you walk around up there and look at that beautiful cube that's on this piece. That really hit me the first time I sat down with this piece, is that when you're walking around up on the mountaintop, you see all these other things. That this was hiding. Something is hiding for you if you will just get started and start putting one foot in front of the other, start working towards that bigger goal. There's something else completely separate from that is just waiting for you to discover it. It's this piece here. It's this, and it's this is very noticeable on this piece. It's what drew me to it in the crystal shop. So there's something bigger that you don't even know yet, but you need to start the momentum. And that's going to require, there is effort and there is diligence required. And that's how fire can help you in this Gemini season. Okay? There we go. I'd be curious what people think about the elemental kind of approach. I just like to change it up every now and then. And here's to Gemini. It's time to get curious. It's time to get creative. And it's time to really speed up the connection between our thoughts and actually working towards something and manifesting it in our lives. Have a great week.